ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, Blake. I am a little bit cautious of the news that came out today, which I'm sure that we're going to get to, with the first evidence of private equity possibly breaking its way into the sport. But other than that, Blake, I'm doing pretty good.
Can I ask a question? Why didn't Pete Thamel put in his report who the three companies that the Big Ten are talking to about $2 billion worth of private equity?
That's a good question, but I would argue it's possible that he just doesn't know, or he wasn't. How do
you get every single detail that you have three companies,
okay,
that you know the day, that you know the time, that you know the location, and that you know the people going to be in the meeting, besides the people trying to give $2 billion who don't really have control?
You and I both get a lot of information that is passed on to us. And we're told that certain parts of it that we're not allowed to share, or sometimes we're told we can't share any of it. I would argue that that's plausible, that somebody gave him all this info and said you can't name the company, because they could be, because they're in negotiation with those companies, they could have signed an NDA, they could have signed some form of document to prevent disclosure of any information until it's finalized. That's part of any good negotiation. But I get why you would be concerned by this, hence why I think everyone is a little bit concerned by it.
Look, do I think it's a good thing for the Big Ten to get $2 billion? Sure, but I don't know if it's the best thing for you or the sport. Because, Joe, what's going to happen when I don't think that people investing don't have some tie to some of the schools inside the universities. Meaning, Larry Ellison has no tie to the University of Michigan other than his wife. When do you have situations like that happening, and now you have equity into the company, and you say, you better not suspend them. You better not suspend John Harbaugh. It's not in our best interest for you to suspend him.
Well, okay, so part of what was talked about in Thamel's and Wetzel's
I guess
article,
we can go ahead and get to it. Can you go ahead? Let's get into it. So today, go ahead and tell people what happened.
If you missed it, and shout out to Elks for bringing this up in the Ruffino and Joe Show Discord, and it became worthy of us talking about at the beginning of the show today. Pete Thamel and Dan Wetzel reported of ESPN that there is a plan in place to inject $2 billion through private capital into the Big Ten. That deal has not been finalized because it sounds like Michigan and Ohio State have a lot of pause to committing to a deal like that. But it seems like from the article that there is a lot of support from the rest of the teams in the conference. My understanding, the way that I read into it,
you want to split $2 billion.
Right.
I mean,
they'd still have they'd have their own budget still.
Well, if you read it, it was a $2 billion that get divided by 18, which is $111 million.
So that would then go on top of the $225 million that's Ohio State's budget. So there's two parts with this.
If you're Rutgers, and you hear Tony Bettini give you a call, bring, hey, William Tate, hey, Kelly Zinn, the new athletic director, we got $111 million coming your way over the next 10 years. What do you think Kelly Zinn and William Tate are going to do? What do you think some of these other AD, and by the way, Ohio State and Michigan might not have any legs to stand on here when you have literally 16 other teams that might vote yes. By the way, bring USC. Hey, dog, we trying to rebuild over here. We need that 111. By the way, UCLA, with all the struggles that UCLA's having right now, you don't think they want that 111 million?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so this is the whole reason why, just generally for Big Ten teams, the answer to it should just be yes. Michigan and Ohio State don't need the money. Oregon doesn't need the money. Washington probably, USC probably don't really need the money. But the whole point is that all ships are rising in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
You're battling with the SEC. You are trying to consistently put out the best programs. So if all of these programs have that much more money going towards their budgets, they can spend more on players. They can spend more on resources. The biggest thing would just be revenue sharing that would go towards players.
Yeah, you don't.
All that is
because if you do 111 million divided by 10, at least you're getting some of the burden taken off of you for TV revenue money.
Right. And I think that's part of the intention of why the money coming in is beneficial and why I think any of the Big Ten teams should be considering it, even Ohio State, Michigan, because it's less about giving yourself an edge within the conference. It's going to be even. You're giving yourself an edge against Alabama,
right,
against Georgia, against LSU. The one thing I wanted to bring up, though, there's a big emphasis, and we got to pay attention to the word here. Private capital is what was brought up, not private equity. So the whole point of this is that they're not buying control of the Big Ten. They are giving money to then receive a return off of the success of the conference.
Correct.
So it's almost like a bank loan. It's kind of like it's almost like an athlete who signs with an agent. Yeah.
With no interest, right, to recoup their money. Why do I feel like private capital and or private equity is going to really hurt the sport?
Here's my thing. I'm not all the way there yet, and I think that there's truth to that assertion, but I don't know for certain if it just completely tanks the sport and makes it a mess. I think Deloitte being involved with the sport is worse than private capital.
You think? Say that again.
I think Deloitte being involved with the sport is worse than private capital.
Oh, I mean, Deloitte started a snitch line, so I mean, of course they did. They're that dumb. But regardless of that, let me tell you my thoughts on it. Do I think it's smart from the Big Ten's perspective when it comes to money? Yes. My question also is asked is, why is Tony Batiti constantly making moves like this? That was my first thought. Now, you can say, well, we're trying to give our schools and get them a little bit of financial relief. It's not equity, as you mentioned. It's capital. They're buying in as a partner, not necessarily taking any control. There's no board seats. It still goes through the conferences, still goes through the teams. But I don't, to be honest, you don't have to have it in writing to have control. Let me give you an example. We see this in politics all the time. People that give money don't have legality of the things that they do and don't control. That's why lobbies and CPACs are formed. But narratives and things are pushed, and presidents and politicians push things through because their financial campaigns or something from a financial standpoint is pushed through to them. Now, you can say, Joe, and this would be the analogy that I used or would use, what is happening with these TV contracts? They have had all the control. And we have all known that they've had the control, but they don't necessarily have the legality. There's no real legality that these TV contracts and TV execs have, but they still control it based off the money that they give. So I would ask, at what point over the last half decade have we seen when money has come into play with college football with no real regulations that it's not hindered the sport, that it's not affected the sport, whether it be NIL, TV contracts, collectives, whatever? Why is this one where people say, oh, it'll be fine, there's no real big deal? I don't see it that way. If someone's giving you $2 billion over 10 years, they're going to have a say, whether it be any part of legality or not. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense on how I'm trying to explain it, but politicians get backdoor deals all the time to push through regulation, and there's no legality behind it, but they do it because of financial commitment that people are giving them. That's what lobbies are for.
I think where I'm understanding what you're talking about is the real example, the simple example is the TV networks, where they do not hold a position within the conferences, but they have a lot of backdoor control that is not really in front of our faces. They have say in things and conversations that none of us are privy to, that only a very small number of people are aware of. So that's a fair point. Wherever the money's coming from, even if they're not given a position of final sign-off, they're still going to be in the room to sway certain decisions. I don't know what that decision-making looks like in this spot and what they would want to even influence for this. I'm divided on, because for a reason like that, when you're getting money from an outside source that has no interest in the true spirit of college athletics, and their only interest is to make money, it's going to take away a lot of the things that we love about the sport. But inversely, it's going to create more, just not balance in terms of competitiveness, but balance in terms of there's less crazy, chaotic shit happening every single week. You know, there's actual continuity in the rules, in the decision making, and how things are operated. And I think more importantly, these athletic departments that are about to be underwater, they need an injection of cash in order to get above water. So, like, that's the biggest part about this, is I don't want to see athletic departments fall apart because of revenue sharing, which is going to happen.
These P4 schools aren't in the water. Hold on now. They're not in the water.
Some of them are. Dudes, a lot of them are. Most of them don't make money.
No, not most of them. Not a lot of them are not in the water. In July, hold on. In July, with
most of them are in the red.
Joe,
dude, most of them are in the red. Most of them are not making money.
You think so you're going to sit here and try to tell me and try to convince me
financial reports on this stuff. Like, I don't have them in front of me.
There's also accountants, and that's what Deloitte does. And how, I'll give an example from an LSU perspective, how they found $1 million was given to Brian Kelly when it wasn't. Where's this money coming from? They're not broke. Sorry.
They're not broke, but they're not broke, but operating costs are incredibly high. Hence why the teams that have the highest amount of donations are the ones that are the most successful. There are a very small number of programs that actually make money.
I see Lions in the chat saying Blake boosters have given money. They've given money to specific schools. They haven't given $2 billion to a conference. By the way,
yeah, it's very different.
It's very different. And then I also throw in here, they have money tied to how well the conference does. By the way, do you think they want more playoff games now because it makes them more money?
This is the point, though.
There's the point.
Decision makers will not make
everything Tony Petitti does is to try to expand the playoff. Every move he makes, I'm convinced.
I mean, I think it's simple. I think it's simpler than that. Tony Petitti is the type of commissioner, while he is creative in his decision making on how he's handling things, at the same time his priority is making money. Hence, he's killing a lot of things about the sport that have made it unique. And that's what's been wrong with Petitti.
Yeah,
he has pitched things that make him more money, not things that are logical and that are best for college football or college athletics.
Listen, the SEC better not do it. And I know that they probably will.
They might be forced to. They're going to be forced
Correct.
to. If this goes through, Sankey will be forced to. I doubt that Sankey wants to.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to either. But guys, you mean to tell me that a company giving $2 billion over the next 10 years is not going to have really any say? Get out of my face with that. Get out of my face with it. Don't you dare try to fool me in telling me that either legality or not legality, that they won't have say in what happens. I'm sorry, Joe. This is dumb. And we be honest with you, we kind of warned, and I'm not going to speak for you on this. I think Tony Petitti's an idiot. I think he's an idiot. Yes,
I don't think he's an idiot. I disagree with that. I don't think he's an idiot. I think he's very tactile.
Let me go on.
How he's doing things.
He's an idiot.
He's selfish.
He's okay. Fair. Let me rephrase that. That's a better point that you made. He's selfish. He's extremely selfish. How are you going to sit here and tell me that this helps the sport? I know that your schools need an influx of cash. What were you doing with that $20 million before you had to pay players? Just because you did not do budgetary restraints of what you needed to do is not anybody's fault but yourself. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but you literally have institutions in the SEC who clear a budget of $150 million a year. 150. So I'm so it's very difficult for me. I know you want to take the burden out of paying players, so you go to private capital. But what is going to happen when somebody who's giving that private capital says and comes to the Big Ten and says, you're not doing this. You're not going to do it. And now what?
I'm curious to see what comes of this.
You don't.
And I wonder
he's already folded to CBS and Fox. Let's just be real.
Well, no. Petitti's the driving force behind this. It sounds like they won't move forward unless every single team commits to it. And as Elks pointed out in the Discord, it does not sound like Ohio State and Michigan want this.
I don't think we look anything alike, Joe. Do you?
No. He's saying you look like a Joe and I look like a Blake. I don't think that at all. I don't look like a Blake, nor do you look like a Joe. That's a bad take of the week.
Well, here's the problem.
Bad take of the week. I know your middle name's Joseph. Mine is not.
My middle name's Joseph.
my middle name starts with a B, but it is not Blake.
Bartholomew.
It is not. It's worse than that. I think I've told you what my middle name. I've told you what my middle name is.
I don't think I've ever heard.
No, I have. I'm not saying it on this show because it's not a good. It's not. It's not.
Oh,
I'm gonna go.
Cool. You're gonna have to tell me again.
I've told you it before. I've told you it before.
Well, I forgot. Elks says Big Noon is why Ohio State won't sign. We want more. I don't disagree with if you're going to take private equity. If you're going to take private capital, then you wouldn't ask for more. Get the number
right.
Get the number to 150 million. Or here's the real truth: you need to find a way to get that number up to 200 million, so that way that you're taking the complete TV revenue money out of it. You got to get to 4 billion.
Well, I also here's the very simple thing, as you just said there. I would be willing to bet, and it was funny. The story comes out. Ross Dellinger comes out, and Ross has a relationship with Dan and with Pete. So like they all know each other. Everybody knows each other. Someone clearly texted him at Ohio State and Michigan and asked him to point out that they do not currently support this movement. They're probably doing what you just said, which is the smart thing to do. Well, we'll agree if we get a little bit more than everybody else.
Of course.
Yeah, that's what I would do. We have the most valuable game and we're the most valuable brands in the conference. We want 100 more or 50 more.
Because they do drive it. Buck says private equity will ruin college athletics. Trust. I agree. I think private capital or private equity is going to ruin it.
I don't think it completely ruins it, but I think it causes I think this version of the sport that we know would look completely different.
Oh, it's already getting there. Way to go, Big Ten.
Well,
you're always screwing shit up. All right, let's get moving here. Everyone do us a favor, hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all the social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, every episode's brought to you by, why am I telling you? You know. Every Ruffino Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Go over to FanDuel.com today. Joe and I will be giving you our picks later on. Now, we've been doing the tough games. We haven't been doing the easy games.
Wait, just be honest. We've been doing real shit. We have not been doing a good job. Somebody commented that they're going to inverse our picks and they're going to fade us. And honestly, go for it. We have not been correct. We're doing really bad right now.
We are picking the toughest games of the week, though. It's not like, hold on. I love everybody else who does media and does a podcast. They go for some layups. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
We're not going for any layups. We're taking the toughest games of the week and betting them.
Right. The other shows that I listen to, the other big shows I listen to, will typically give out the bets that they like during the week. And I do that during my guest appearances when I go on BetMGM and Infinity Sports Network and all that stuff. we're literally picking the hardest games. So we're not going to have a good record.
No. So don't stop that. But
yeah.
you can go over to FanDuel and bet those games today. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, go over to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. Joe, let's get to our Week 6 power rankings. Your top 12 consist of whom?
Number 1, I've got Miami. Number 2, Oregon. Number 3. Okay, and I want to be very clear here. There is not much separation between these 3 teams. So before any Ohio State fans get pissed at me, I'm going to speak very highly of you guys in the preview later on in this episode. Ohio State's at 3, Alabama's at 4, Georgia at 5, Tennessee at 6, Ole Miss at 7, Penn State 8, Indiana 9, Texas Tech 10, Texas A&M 11, Oklahoma 12.
So before we get into a massive debate here, let me go ahead and read off my top 12. I have a new number 1, the Oregon Ducks. And they remain and should remain at number 1. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Miami. Number 4, Ole Miss. Number 5, Texas A&M. Number 6, Penn State. Number 7, Alabama. Number 8, Georgia. Number 9, Tennessee. Number 10, Indiana. At 11 coming in is Oklahoma. And at 12, I have Texas Tech. Let's go ahead and have the big debate here. You're mad that I have Oregon over the Miami Hurricanes.
No, I'm not mad that you have it, but I'm actually sure that you're going to be more upset with my logic on Miami over yours.
Tell me.
Oregon showed me a lot and impressed me a ton with the way that they played against Penn State. I saw a lot of resilience, and most importantly, Dante Moore confirmed that he is the best quarterback in college football at the current moment. He had unbelievable poise and guts in situations where he needed to step up to the plate. He made big plays when they desperately needed it. He is doing everything that I look for and I love in a quarterback in college football. They can get to a national title with him. I do not want to just suddenly back off of Miami, though. And I want to continue to support Miami and how good they have looked so far. And I feel I'm going to be incredibly vindicated and justified with the way that they play against Florida State this weekend. There's a real good shot, Blake, that I end up dropping Miami to like 5 or something because they don't play well and they end up losing to Florida State. But I just don't think that's going to come to fruition. I think that they're doing everything right defensively. I think that they have one of the most stout running games, if not the most stout running game in all of college football. And because of both of those sides, they're able to close out close wins when certain parts of their team are not performing to expectation. As much as I like Oregon, and I think Oregon is right there up against them, if these two teams went to head-to-head at the current moment, I would take Miami purely because I think that Miami's defense is just a hair better than Oregon's. Not significantly, just a hair better.
Who has the best win in college football to date?
As of right now,
shouldn't have to think about this. Who has the best win in college football this season to date?
Actually, maybe Alabama, but it's Oregon for the sake of this argument. But who has looked the most dominant in all of their games with the hardest schedule? This is the same argument that we had last week.
I'm glad you asked that. They don't have a harder schedule than Oregon at the current moment. Not per strength of record, not per strength of schedule.
We're too early on in the season for those metrics to like really hold.
Right now, they don't. They've also gone on the road twice, halfway across the country, and played 2 conference opponents. Miami hasn't left the state of Florida. So when you're talking about power rankings, they've gone across the country twice. They've gone to Chicago. They've gone to Penn State. They went into Happy Valley at night in a whiteout. They went in overtime with a very young team that continues to get better with what, let's just be honest, arguably one of, if not the best quarterback in college football right now in Dante Moore. They're going to get better at receiver because those are a lot of young players. They're going to get better along the offensive line. Joe, the number 1 running back in the portal, Hughes, is redshirting and going back into the portal because he got beat out because of the level of talent that they brought in at that position. You're going to have to, when we're talking about power rankings, I've seen more out of Oregon than I've seen out of Miami at the current moment. Do I think you can have the debate if they went on a neutral field right now on who would win? Sure. That's why we both have them in the top 3. But at the same time, I've seen more from the University of Oregon and how they've done things than I feel like that I've seen from Miami. I don't think that there's a team Miami has played at the current moment that can test them from an athlete versus athlete standpoint. Do you think Florida or USF can tested? Hold on. Let me ask you. Has USF or Florida overall tested Miami more than what you've seen from Oregon? And be honest with you,
Oregon beat the shit out of Oregon State and Oklahoma State and Montana State. I'm not trying to downplay their schedule. I respect what they've done, but it's not like they played a gauntlet.
But I got to be real with you. I think the Notre Dame win for Miami is a little bit overinflated. It is a little bit overinflated at the current moment.
No, it's not. It's absolutely
Texas
not.
Came into Indiana and put 100 on your ass. Yes, it is.
Okay. We're not talking about Texas A&M though. This is where I'm getting I get frustrated by this.
You're talking about the teams that they've played. I don't think that any of the teams Miami has played is a better team than Penn State. Neither do you, because in your power rankings, you have Penn State there. So by your own logic, you're saying Penn State and Oregon beating them by your own metrics is the best win in college football today.
I'm not disagreeing that the Penn State win is a good win, but we're not ranking resumes, and we're not
ranking resumes either.
Okay,
but
Blake, I understand where you're coming from, that Oregon has been incredibly dominant, and I am not downplaying that, but we can't sit here and say that Miami hasn't been tested when they beat Notre Dame. They beat a Florida team.
I didn't say they weren't tested. Hold on. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say they weren't tested.
What did you say then? What was your argument?
Oregon has been more tested than Miami.
No, I didn't say they just tested. Because they played they have one singular. You know what? Here's a take. I don't think Penn State's much better than Notre Dame. I think Penn State and Notre Dame are very comparable. I think that both those teams have very different flaws that hold them back. I think Notre Dame is just as even with Penn State as both those two teams compared. The only difference is that where Oregon gets extra credit is that they travel to go do that in Happy Valley, which they deserve credit for doing so. I don't think Penn State's as good as everybody makes them out to be.
Do you have A&M above Penn State? Because
A&M put them ahead of.
Because then again, by your own logic, then you don't have A&M above Penn State. I do. So again,
but we're not talking about A&M. We can't do this line of progression comparison. We just like two layers of separation
based off of where teams should go. You said you think Notre Dame is better than Penn State. Then why didn't you put the team that beat Notre Dame on their home field above Penn State?
Because that is circular logic that is not applied for the conversation that we're having in the current moment. You're pulling away from the discussion.
But hold on.
Stop.
Hold on. Okay.
We're not having. We're talking too much about comparing who they're playing. Can we compare the teams? Can we compare the two teams and how they look?
Who's got the better quarterback, Dante Moore or Carson Beck?
Oregon has the better quarterback. Miami has the better offensive line. Miami has the better defensive line. Miami has the better running back room. They didn't have in this game against Penn State. They did not have a running back go over 100 yards. And while Dyer Hill Jr. looked great, I think that the whole Mekhi Hughes situation is more reflective of the fact that they don't have a lot of talent, and the Mekhi Hughes pickup was a total swing and a miss. I also would argue that Miami might even have better receivers than Oregon does at the current moment.
There's not a receiver on Miami's team better than DeCorian Moore. Please stop right now.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
Okay. The kid's a freshman. He's in game 6. He's in game 6. And let me just tell you this. You're right. You might not want to put Oregon there now, but next week they play a top 10 Indiana team. And we're going to find out who they are yet again. So they've gone on the road in the halfway across the country. They went halfway across damn near to Europe for them, all the way across the America or North America to literally play a team in a whiteout. And then they got another top 10 team. So you're right. I do think that we're going to see more from them. Now, you said the resume. Okay. So let's get past it. Joe, where's their biggest flaw?
Oregon's biggest flaw.
Yeah, what's the biggest flaw? Because I think Miami's biggest flaw, for what it's worth, And why I asked you about the quarterback situation, I just think Dante Moore continues and will continue to get better, and that is what's going to lead them. That kid went on the road and legitimately put that team on his back and brought them over the edge. That is why I have him. In college football, if Dante Moore would have been a little bit more shaky, that's fine. Every fourth down, they're going to him. Every big play, they're going to him. I just cannot get away from that this kid has done, and quite frankly, been the best quarterback in the country so far. And so
I said that. I agree with that.
When we're splitting hairs here, I think Dante Moore at the end of the day is just going to make more plays than Carson Beck. And I got to be real with you. I don't know if I completely know what this Miami wide receiver room outside of Tony is. CJ Daniels has got to start catching the ball. I mean, he has way too many drops.
I don't disagree.
Go ahead.
I don't disagree with you with the Dante Moore take. I think that he's better than Carson Beck. But my reason, and I'm being very clear here, there is very tiny incremental separation between these two squads. I do not think that Miami is clear-cut, far and away, best team in the country. Nobody can touch them. I think if we're comparing position group to position group for both of these teams, Miami has a slight head, a slight margin. I think both these teams are the most balanced teams in college football, as we have said time and time again. They're both the teams to beat in their respective parts of the country, in their respective conferences. There is a legitimate opportunity for them to be on a crash course to get to a national championship if Miami gets the job done against Florida State this week. But I think that there's just a hair incremental difference between the Miami O-line, D-line, and what Oregon has. I think that their secondaries are comparable. I think that their receiver rooms are pretty even. I think that there's an edge for Oregon at tight end. And I think that we have to acknowledge that there is a serious boost for Miami's running back room because of the production they've gotten from three different guys. I don't think it's massive. I just think that for me, watching this team, there's enough of a small gap that I have to go with Miami.
Just admit it. You hate Dan Lanning.
Okay. You know what? Well, so I'm being accused of hating Ohio State by Elks. Can we talk about this?
In just a second. Let me get this one thing off.
Okay.
I told you this, and you don't really completely agree. I trust their quarterback, and I trust their head coach. I talked about the quarterback. I trust Dan Lanning more than I trust Cristobal. And I think if I'm going into a game, I'm rolling with them more than I'm rolling with Miami. Miami fans think I hate them. I still have had them in the top 5 every week. So this, I know I can already see
higher
right now. I just look going on the road to Penn State and doing what you did on what's going to be a playoff team is impressive to me with a young team, and I'm gonna keep rewarding them for doing what they're doing. Miami did not play. I mean, next week they could blow out Florida State. But that's Miami. Hold on one second.
Yeah,
they could blow out Florida State, and we come in here and say, "Listen, Miami, look at them." And I do think that 1 through 3 at the current moment might be a trickling effect. And then the following week, if Oregon beats Indiana, then what do we say? I will continue to say, though, I think that they've just been more tested. And when you're fighting over all these semantics, I don't disagree with the O-line play. Really, I don't.
You got to stop bringing up that we fight over semantics. That's the whole point of the podcast. It's this whole show was built off of fighting over the fucking semantics.
The reason I say that is not really for you. It's because I know what my inbox and our inbox is going to look like in about an hour now.
That's true.
I mean, I don't think Miami fans like me, and I have them at 3. So anyway, all right. Elks sent in a super chat saying that you hate Ohio State. Don't you have them at 2?
I have them at 3, and you have them at 2.
We have Ohio State. I have Ohio State at 2. You have Ohio State at 3. We're being accused of being Ohio State haters.
The Texas win loses its shine. It loses its shine as Texas has played as they've had so far. And we're not comparing resumes, as we always say. I think that they are really not far behind any of these top 2 teams for me, or the teams that we're talking about. I just have a little slight worry in the lack of just general explosive plays that they generate on offense. Jeremiah Smith is a home run every single time he touches the football, but I feel like outside of him, there's not a lot of splash plays that are coming from this team when they faced P4 opponents. And while Bo Jackson looked great against Washington, which I'm going to bring up. By the way, do you know Bo Jackson's real name is Lamar? Did you know that his name is Lamar Jackson?
I did. I heard that on I heard that on the telecast. Yes.
That is the funniest damn thing that I have heard.
The two are just best runners in the NFL's history.
Right.
You're named technically after both of them.
Right. Well, and it sounds like you chose to go by Bo. I don't know what happened there. The lack of explosive plays is not an issue that I think holds them back. It's something that I just would like to see, that I know that they're capable of producing. And I know that now that Bo Jackson is stepping up, that the run game is going to get better and better. But I would like to see more dominance in the run game, knowing that you actually have a solid offensive line. Outside of that, I do think that they have the best defense just athletically in college football. I mean, Caden Curry and McDonald and Arvell Reese are Sonny Styles, insane. Caleb Down. It's insane watching these dudes fly over the field. The talent level in the athleticism that they have at every single position group is comical. It's comical what these guys are doing. You got Caden Curry on this ridiculous pace to break the Ohio State sack record at the current moment. It is unreal what they have. So I can't discount that. I think that when all three of these teams are really balanced, I got to go with the two teams that are just a little bit more explosive and have slightly better run games.
I agree with that. Here's the thing. They're number one in the country in scoring defense, only allowing 5 points a game.
That's nuts.
However, is there been anybody that you've played, and I know that I trollingly picked Washington last week, is there anybody that you've played that can test you? Because we thought it would be Texas, and they look what they've been offensively. I agree with you there. I have them at 2. I really did debate today keeping them at 1 because, Joe, I think after they've gotten this monkey off of their back, what have they done? All right. They beat a ranked Tennessee. They beat a ranked Texas. They beat a ranked Oregon. They came into the season beating a ranked Texas. They've pretty much dominated every facet of the game moving forward. And I do think that there's something to be said about the explosive plays. I do wonder if they're somewhat limited Julian Sayin to some extent and progressively moving him along. But I do need to see Brian Hartline in this team. And when they needed the big play and explosive play against Texas, they got it. Can they continue to develop offensively will be the biggest deal here. I think you're right. The run game is a little bit questionable to me, especially versus the teams that you've played. I think Washington – defensively in the front seven is actually better than anybody wants to admit. But, Joe, we'll talk about Ohio State and Minnesota in just a minute in that game. They're 50th in the country in rushing. And I do agree they gotta pick that up a little bit. And if they do, they'll be completely fine here. And, look, I'm just going to keep them at 2. I mean, this is what I feel like when I think about Ohio State at the current moment. Boy, Ryan Day looks more composed than he ever has.
Yeah. Yep.
No, there is no moment big enough for him. And I think that his team is starting to feel that way, right? Like I feel as if that they are starting to take on the personality of him of like, look, guys, all right, we're putting on third down. Defense is going to go out there and dominate them. So I don't know if we're technically Ohio State haters. I'm Big Ten Blake. I got 2 Big Ten.
They're pissed too. They were really pissed at you. For that Washington take that you had.
I know. But listen, you got to take shots sometimes. And I completely missed. All right, where do you want to go here next?
That's a good question. Why don't we get last take in here?
I kind of wanted to talk about your thoughts about Ole Miss or Texas A&M because look, I want to talk
about Ole Miss.
Okay. So you have Ole Miss at 7. I have Ole Miss at 4.
I think that what Ole Miss did against LSU was impressive, but I don't believe that it required the full energy of a real solid defense to beat them. I think with all the offensive problems that LSU is going through, made Ole Miss's defense look better than it is. And I have a lot of fears for Ole Miss's defense. I do not think that what they did against LSU is replicable. I think that they're going to get caught up and they're going to lose a couple of games down the line on their schedule, and they've got a very favorable schedule. I think that Georgia can be more dominant than them. I absolutely think Alabama can be more dominant than them. And I currently think that Tennessee's defense, while it hasn't been great over the last couple of weeks, has the depth to bounce back. And once Jermon McCoy and the whole corner room is healthy, they're going to play to their potential. I do not think that Ole Miss is a top 5 team. I just don't. I think that they're good and they're going to stay in the top 15. But I do not think that they are some dominant, unstoppable force worthy of being ahead of the likes of Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee and some of those other teams that we have in there.
Well, every team has deficiencies, and Alabama can't run the football. I'm going to put them there because, look, there's going to be a couple of things here. Do I agree that they deserve technically, and I have them in the top 5? Yeah, but man, the magic of Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, do I think they're going to get beat by Georgia? Yeah, I do. But at the same time, I also just don't know what Georgia is at the current moment. Joe, I mean, if you're in a situation where multiple play callers are able to hit shots on you, am I supposed to sit here and think that Lane Kiffin won't? Because that's the conversation that I'm having with myself. All right. You said Alabama. All right, fair. Their run defense is not great. Joe, there have been other run defenses that aren't great that Bama can't run the ball on either. So when I start thinking about, and I don't even think this Ole Miss team is better than the team overall that they had last year, but they're playing like it. So if other programs like Tennessee, Alabama, whoever is going to hit shots, I'm actually going to trust that Lane Kiffin's going to do the same until Georgia or one of those teams in the SEC shows me differently. You don't want to know why I got A&M where I have them? Because they might have the most explosive wide receiver room in the SEC right now. And if they matched up against Georgia, I'm not taking Georgia as big of an A&M hater as I am. Can Georgia cover them? Joe, I have no faith that DB room, after what we've seen the last 2 times that they've played, that they can cover anybody with speed. So I'm with you. I'm taking a little bit of a gamble, I guess, here with Ole Miss. But at the same time, if you broke these games down, especially between the SEC teams, I mean, Joe, can Penn State score enough? Is Drew Allard going to make? Are they going to make bad decisions? Is Nick Singleton hurt?
No, I just don't think he's playing well. I don't think he's playing well.
So you get into the part of 4 to about 9, 10, and you start thinking about this Ole Miss team. I mean, think about Penn State at the current moment. Joe, can they score 30 to beat Ole Miss? Can they score 30 to beat Ole Miss? Now, I don't know if Ole Miss can score 30.
No, which is why I don't even have Penn State ahead of them. I had Penn State after Ole Miss for these exact reasons.
You start getting into those conversations that you have with yourself on Ole Miss. Just how good can this team be? I don't think they're more talented, but man, Trinidad Chambliss, the magic, I don't know.
I like Chambliss, but I'm not overly impressed with.
Would you take Trinidad Chambliss or Drew Allard today?
Trinidad. I would take Trinidad. But again, we're not talking about Penn State. I wouldn't take Trinidad.
Stand up.
I wouldn't take Trinidad over Ty Simpson or Gunnar Stockton or Joe.
I wouldn't either.
No, okay, I wouldn't
either. All right. Look, you have A&M in here too. I kind of wanted to get to them. You have Texas A&M at 11, and Joe, I have.
Are we skipping the preview? We got 15 minutes left here.
Oh shit. Okay, let's get to the preview. My bad. I didn't know how much time we had here.
We spent too much time on the private equity thing.
We did. Of course we did. That's why we don't do them. Ohio State versus Minnesota this week. Joe, when you look into this game, what are your thoughts?
Blake, so this game, Ohio State's a 23.5-point favorite last I checked on FanDuel. I get it that Minnesota has a good record. Their one loss coming up against Cal. I get that this game is in prime time. But quite simply, this is going to be a boat race. Now, one of the things that I talked about in our ranking segment what I want to get from this Ohio State team and what I want to see in this performance. I really would like to see a more established run game. I want to see more touches for Bo Jackson. I think that he is their best option at running back, and I'm glad that we're starting to see an emergence for him. And the way that he was able to contribute against Washington was a breath of fresh air. I think he's better than Donaldson. I think he's better than Peoples. And I hope that wasn't just a 1 week bit that they decided to go with him and get him touches. I'm so impressed by this defense, Blake. They have so much speed. They have so much athleticism. I do not think that Drake Lindsey is going to be able to do very much, especially with the injuries that Minnesota currently has at running back at the current moment. So, Blake, just to be very direct here, this game should be an ass whooping, but there's an opportunity to grow from it and to build on some things that have been a little bit weak for this Ohio State team.
Look, defensively, they're arguably all around the best defense in the country is Ohio State. Mm-hmm. 8th in the country in pass defense, 27th in the country in run defense. I think that had a lot to do with what happened last week versus Washington. It was still a really good team. They're 8th in total defense, 1st in scoring defense, 4th in third down defense, and they're going up against a Minnesota team and PJ Fleck and the boys that I just don't know if they have the weaponry or the athletes to be able to hang on and score enough points to beat them. If they're going to clip them, which I don't think that they remotely will, if they do, they're going to have to make this one very, very, very ugly. They're going to have to get a lot of turnovers. They're going to have to confuse Julian Sayin and get multiple turnovers to be in this game, much less win it. Joe, I look at this Minnesota team. I specifically look at them running the football. The best, arguably, one of the best things that I think Ohio State does versus the worst thing that Minnesota does offensively. And again, this game, we're talking about this from coming on paper. But then when you turn on the film, and I'm like, dude, they can't really bust a grape up front. They've been that bad. They've been okay throwing the football around, and I know that they've been fine. They've done some good things. They got some decent athletes. But, Joe, when it comes down to it, you're not going to be able to throw your way into a win against this secondary. At least I don't think that you're going to be able to. You got to establish the line of scrimmage. Minnesota's been really good defensively. Guys, they're top 25 in scoring defense. They're 9th in the country in total defense. They've been good. And ironically, Joe, even after Heatherman left, they look a lot of the same from just a schematical standpoint. However, I'm with you. I think this one's going to be a boat race. I want to see Julian Sayin start attacking a little bit more. Start pushing the ball a little bit more downfield. I felt like that he checked down a lot of things versus Washington last week, that maybe he could have pushed the envelope when he had some one-on-one situations. But I don't think people realize how good this Washington team is from a talent standpoint, and they degrade the win. Joe, this one might be a boat race, and I just don't think Minnesota can run the football at all. Joe, they're 87th in the country in rushing, which really would scare me if I'm them going into the game. And you better find ways to extend the run, or this one's going to get ugly.
Yeah, and I think that them not having Darius Taylor and A.J. Turner really available to them has caused a lot of problems for them trying to get the run game going, because they've historically had a really good run game. I think that what's made Minnesota a lot more dangerous this year than it has been in the past, and maybe for the first quarter of this game could be a little spicy, is because of Drake Lindsey. Drake Lindsey is the young up-and-coming quarterback that those that are true football watchers that have been watching a lot of the Big Ten play this year know who he is. He's got a lot of flashes. He's going to grow and develop into a premier player for this program. He can do a lot of things despite having some limitations for what's around him offensively. This offensive line has not done a good job of protecting him. They've allowed 7 sacks, and they've gone up against Buffalo, Cal, Northwestern State, and Rutgers. Inversely, you've got guys like Caden Curdy and Caden McDonald who are just getting after opposing offenses. Curdy had 3 sacks against Washington. He's on a historic run to be one of the most productive pass rushers in the history of Ohio State football, which is even more insane to talk about. So, Blake, I think we're going to really get the full force of the speed, the athleticism, the power, everything that goes into this unit for this Ohio State defensively, because as good as Minnesota has looked, they're down a couple of bodies that is hurting them. Maybe, as you talked about there, Coy Parrish and Anthony Smith and the secondary that they have does a solid job of keeping everything in front of them, and they're just not super potent offensively and picking up big chunk gains like we haven't really seen from this Ohio State offense. Maybe that happens, and this is low scoring, but I don't see a way that Ohio State does not win this thing confidently and handedly.
I agree that they're going to win it confidently and handily. I think Minnesota's defense is being a little bit overlooked. They're 9th in the country in total defense. They're one of the top teams in the country in defending the run. And this is the question you brought up earlier about Bo Jackson getting the run game going. Joe, is this run defense for Minnesota legit at all? Because they're 5th in the country in stopping the run. And if they are, and that has been kind of the issue that Ohio State has had, you're 50th. It's the worst thing that you do. From a statistical analysis standpoint, the worst thing Ohio State does is run the football. Okay, so we got that understood. But, man, what are you supposed to make of this Minnesota defense? What are you supposed to make of that they've been pretty clamped down and only allowing 65 yards per game on the ground? How do you make sense of that this early into the season? The first question I'm going to have in this game is if Ohio State's able to control the line of scrimmage and run the football, and I'm not even saying bust long runs, just be moderately effective, then they're really going to control this game. But if this Minnesota defensive line front seven is able to continue to do some of the things that they've done over the last couple of weeks, I think that's where they keep the game close. I do think the biggest thing when I look at this is talent and depth is going to overweigh and overtake Minnesota in the second half, and that's when they start separating. But the real question I ask, look, this Minnesota secondary's been very violent. This front seven's been very violent. PJ has them playing with an attitude. I'm not saying that you're going to lose or it's remotely I'm not even saying it's close. But if what we've seen from Minnesota continues to go on, Joe, this team's not been bad at all.
Damn it. Oh, no, here's the line. Yeah, no, so I was right. 23.5 is the line for this game. I would definitely – I don't know if I would – over at FanDuel. I don't know if I'm going to take Ohio State to cover, but I would consider taking the under 44.5 at minus 115 odds because this feels like an under game. This feels like a 35, 38 – well, then we would hit the over if that happened. But I mean, let's say 28-3, something like that. It feels like one of those games where they kind of just peel back and close it out. I don't think they're going to be. Down.
You talked about the injuries; they're not going to be able to run the ball here. I don't see it whatsoever. All right, let's get moving here. We do have a couple of super chats we need to get to. Marshall with a $20 super chat says, "Joe, sorry man, but your top 12 is hot garbage." Tennessee has struggled defensively all year. Penn State hasn't beaten a single P4 team. A&M has the number one strength of record. Your top 12 is like Ohio State fake punts. Nobody likes it.
Okay, so again, we're not
number one schedule. Just for what it's worth.
Yeah, and I give A&M credit, but A&M's run defense through the first couple of weeks up until the Auburn game was quite porous. So we've got one game of evidence where they actually played good defense. The Penn State take is fine, but defensively, they're a lot more talented than A&M's are and all those other teams that I had behind them. We're not talking about resumes. We're not comparing resumes. Do they have a problem with Drew Aller? Absolutely. But there's a get-right opportunity for them here.
I just think A&M's explosiveness at wide receiver is insane. Lion says Ohio State successfully replaced both coordinators. What three teams have the best coaching staffs? I have Indiana the most underrated for what it's worth. I don't necessarily completely disagree with that.
I agree with Indiana. I think Indiana is really underrated. And Ohio State so far has successfully.
They're going to be screaming. They'll be calling and saying shit about Brian Hartline if they go up against one of these top teams and lose.
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to say that. Elk says Texas wins, loses shine, but the Notre Dame game for Miami doesn't. Damn, they are after your ass today, buddy.
Wait. Do we really think that Notre Dame has improved since they lost to Miami and A&M? Texas has not. What are we debating here? What are we arguing here? There's nothing to argue with that.
I think it's because this is not me. Don't yell at me. I think it's because Notre Dame has 2 losses, which is why people are saying that. I'm not saying it's me. I'm not saying it's me. Okay.
That's if I had to debate. for the concept of the debate, I said that the victory loss shine. I did not say it discredited it. It just didn't look as good as we thought it did after 1 week. And then the second part about that, I wasn't saying that the Notre Dame victory was the only evidence for Miami's deserving to be number one. I was merely pointing out that it is one of a number of good performances they had against tough rosters.
Alex also says teams are running cover 4 shell hard to throw deep. That's not necessarily true, because you could say it's hard to throw it on the boundary deep, but if you're running cover 4 and everybody has a fourth of the field and they're pushing back, it opens up the middle of the field, because then your linebackers have to go out. So the middle of the field has to be open.
Well, and also those deep zone coverage shells were what we've literally watched Notre Dame's defense, for example, get picked apart. So coverage shells, you keep things in front of you and it's harder to get big explosives. Explosive plays aren't always just that, though. There's sometimes you can turn a short route concept into a big gain.
Fair. All right, let's run through these picks really quickly. Alabama versus Vanderbilt, and every pick is brought, and all of our picks are brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Joe, Alabama minus 10.5. We're both going with the Tide to win, but we're going to take Vandy to cover here.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue that I have is knowing that Vanderbilt runs the ball as well as they do, and the issues that Alabama has shown going up against mobile quarterbacks as well as teams that effectively run the football. So them covering the 10.5, if I had to just lean a certain direction, I am going to go with Vandy to cover.
I do think Bama's going to win. I could see him winning by 10. I just think this is going to be closer because you're coming off a very emotional win last week. I think this game gets closer. I know that they want revenge. And, Joe, there could be a world where Bama blows them out, completely blows their doors off because of it. And I could definitely see that with Ty Simpson and as good as he's been playing. I just think this one's going to be a little bit closer than the experts are thinking here, maybe by even half a point. Texas minus 6.5 versus Florida. Both of us going with the Longhorns over the Gators.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in this Florida team. I think that they've run out of juice, and I do really think that this could be a potential, not true coming out party for Arch, but a game where Arch starts to build a little bit of momentum. My overall fear is the fact that you've got DJ Lagway going up against a top 5 defense, and he has not played well in those situations.
He's not played well, and quite honestly, I don't trust anything that they're doing on offense. Nothing. How do you have that offensive line and that running back, and you're that bad running the football? Texas is going to lean on them. I think it'll be close. But I just don't trust Florida at all. Texas Tech minus 10.5. Joe, both of us going with the Red Raiders.
Houston sucks.
Golly.
Houston's overrated, man. Houston's so overrated. I don't think that.
Well, what are they rated?
I think some people might be hyping them up for this start that they've had. I think that it is a fake 4-win stretch that they've had. Texas Tech is going to lay it on. I just very simply. They looked incredibly dominant against Utah. They're going to look incredibly dominant against Houston.
Something in the back of my mind and in my gut is telling me this is where Willie Fritz gets you.
Your gut's wrong. Your gut's wrong.
Maybe I'm right. I mean, maybe you're right. And that's why I picked Texas Tech. But I've seen Willie literally do it in the state that I live at. I've seen him do it multiple times. Maybe, Joe, like Oklahoma that year. I mean, like everybody thought they were going to blow out Tulane, and then here comes Willie and the boys. We'll see. Texas A&M minus 14.5 versus Mississippi State. I'm going with State. You're going with A&M. But I'm picking A&M to win. I'm just not picking them to cover. Okay, there we go.
I'm taking A&M to win and cover, obviously. The issues along both lines of scrimmage for Mississippi State are notable to me. I think Cassius Howell is going to tee off on Blake Shapen. I think that the passing attack is going to flourish because they can't get after Marcel Reed. This is a recipe for disaster. This is a really, really bad matchup for this Mississippi State team that's been exciting so far.
Come on, State. I'm trying to be positive. Come on. Come on.
Your love for Mississippi State has always been so funny to me.
Well, they were the only P4 school to send me letters in the mail for football, so I'm never going to denigrate the Mississippi State. Miami -4.5 on Florida State. Joe, both of us going with the Hurricanes.
You have a defense that is fundamentally sound, that swarms to the football, and also that runs the ball really well. I think that defensively, they're going to be able to bottle up Castellanos somewhat, and they're going to slow them down just a little bit. And then on the other side of the ball, we watched Florida State get ran over by Virginia. I think that they're licking their chops. I think Marty Brown, I think that Jordan Lyle, I think that Mark Fletcher, those guys, if Lyle plays, they're going to have a really easy time putting up a lot of yards on the ground.
I just think they're going to lean on a team that can't tackle. This one's going to be close. It's going to be really close. I think Florida State's going to give them everything that they can. Joel, I'm going to be real with you. I really debated going Florida State and then Miami winning by 3. I think this one's going to be a dogfight.
I think it's going to be a dogfight too, but I just think that Florida State's issues are not matched up well for Miami.
They're not, man. They can't tackle in space, and that's where you start getting really bad things. It's been a great week. We'll see you all on Sunday to recap all of this. Y'all have a good night. Peace.